Chief Johnny Greene. And on the back, it will show the later picture with his squaw and granddaughter. As the picture was being taken, Greene objected to looking too much like an Indian. "Look like a white man," he growled when the photographer started to drape his blanket around him. Fearing that Greene would refuse to sit, a Prince Albert coat was borrowed from the Louis Fisher's clothing store. In the spring of 1868, Enos received word of the death of his old and faithful friend, Chief Johnny Greene. The chief was about 73 years old at the time. The winter was a very severe one, and there was much suffering among the Indians, and it was probably pneumonia which caused the death of the chief. After the death of the old Indian, members of his tribe guarded the grave for some time, fearing it would be robbed. It is stated that Indians went to the photo gallery after Greene's death to see the large picture of the old chieftain, and that real tears would be wiped from the bronze cheeks as the red men gazed at the picture of their beloved chief. Other groups of Potawatomis and Meskwakis also hunted and traveled through Greene County. Their stories are also recorded in various histories and journals. Dr. Walter Lovejoy moved to the town of Old Rippey in 1859 with his family when he was 5. Walter became greatly interested in the Indian folks who were camped near them. He spent so much time with the Indians that their chief Black Dog threatened to adopt him. They nicknamed him Badger, a name that stuck with him for many years. He spent a lot of time riding up and down the river with the Indians in either of 2 canoes the Indians constructed out of big basswood trees. Mrs. F. Seibert relates tales her grandmother told her about experiences with the Indians that lived near Old Rippey. Grandmother said at first she was a little hesitant about visiting these people, who were tall, slender, and agile in form, with faces bronzed by sun, wind, and rain. Their expressions were stern and somber, seldom or never marked with a smile. Their facial features consisted of high cheekbones, small noses, and coarse, straight, stiff black hair. Their costumes were commonly made of animal skins, their necklaces of wampum, beads, or shells, and their ornaments of feathers. They delighted to daub their face and bodies with bright red paint. As grandmother became older, she had more courage and finally was brave enough to visit her brown-skinned neighbors. They lived in wickiups, which the bare earth serving as the floor. It was covered in places with furs from animals. Their wickiups were constructed with an opening at the center of the top, since the fire was built on the ground directly underneath this opening. The smoke from the fire, as well as that from their pipes, would pass out of the wickiups. Around the fire, they cooked their meat. No matter what kind of meat it was put on the end of a hickory stick, the other end of which was stuck in the ground, so that the meat roasted over the coals. The squaws also made cakes from cornmeal, which they fried in deep fat. Grandmother said these would puff up and get so brown that she believed she could eat them too. The Indians had no tables, chairs, or beds, but sat around the fire and ate from bowls carved from wood. They slept on blankets with their feet to the fire and their heads to the edge of the wickiups. The squaws did practically all the work. In early fall, before the snow fell, they gathered in dry wood to burn during the winter. They tied this wood I lost my place. Let's see. They tied this wood into large bundles with straps made of hide. Another strap was adjusted across their forehead, which aided them in carrying wood on their backs. The squaws made their moccasins from hides of animals. The men and boys did the hunting and fishing. In those days, this part of the country was completely new. Therefore, there were many opossum, badger, muskrat, skunk, mink, and weasel. The animals were carefully skinned, and what skins the Indians did not use for their own garments, they sold or traded to the white settlers. Black Dog, the doctor of the tribe, seemed to also serve the capacity as Indian chief. He was very tall and erect and of stout stature. He made his medicine from roots, bark, and leaves of the herbs the squaws gathered in the woods. He doctored many white people also, and when going on sick missions, he rode very stiff, as though he were especially proud. Mrs. Black Dog was large, too, and a very jolly old soul. When the white girls went to visit, they always went to her wigwam because she was so kind and entertaining. Grandmother said one time when they were all very interested in watching her work with her beads and shells, Mrs. Black Dog very suddenly gave a loud Indian yell. Of course, the white girls were too frightened to even move. The squaw laughed until her old fat body shook like a golden jelly. The daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Black Dog was very quiet and spent most of their time in her wickiup. Stubb, their son, was much more associative. However, and called on the white people often because he desired to become more like the white boys. During one of his visits at great-grandmother's, he asked her if she would make him a pair of trousers, like she made for her own boys. What do you think the Indians wore as clothing? They wore leggings and breechcloths, skirts, and jackets. Of course, she made them, and Snub very proudly removed his leggings to don his first pair of pants. Frank Snodgrass, in 1929, then the oldest native son of Greene County, excuse me, 2/12/1859, in a log house 3 miles southeast of Jefferson, recollects his boyhood friendship with the use of an Indian tribe, who came each winter to camp within a half-mile of the Snodgrass home, on the banks of the river where trapping was good. In the summertime, they would go away. The Snodgrass boys spent many hours playing with the Indians. The chief sports were hunting and shooting with the bows and arrows and horse racing. The Cochranes of Horseshoe Bend area were also familiar with Johnny Greene and Black Dog. Black Dog and his small band would camp on their land along the Coon River and were always friendly. They would camp several places, and some would stay all winter at one or another permanent campsite along the river. One of this was near Flex Mill, and another campsite 2 miles south of the mouth of Cedar Creek. Those who stayed would pay the settlers for what they needed. Others would beg for what they could from the farmers. They would often buy potatoes and flour. Sometimes they would ask for milk, which was generally given to them. Sometimes the Cochrans hired the Indians to help build fences and husk corn. Mrs. Cochran said Black Dog was a good Indian, but it seemed he could always tell when she was baking bread. She would never hear a sound, but when she turned around, there would stand that Indian. She was afraid to refuse him a loaf, though sometimes she could ill afford to give it. During the last year the Indians occupied their camp on the Coon, Black Dog received word of the death of their big chief back on the reservation, Chief Johnny Greene, and all of the tribe having elected him to chief of the Nisquoks. Chief Black Dog immediately ordered camp broke. And it was then the canoes and other paraphernalia that they could not take with them, and which he wisely figured they would probably never return to use again, were distributed among their white neighbors who had often done them a good turn. This is the end of the Indian travels and tales in Greene County to my knowledge. first picture of Jefferson when there were no trees or anything except for the constables. And that's all I have. You know everything that I know
So I have to say thank you on behalf of the Historical Society. That was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. So thank you very much. Thank you all for being patient. We were a little late at the dinner, so some of you had to sit up here for quite a while.